Welcome everyone to the second edition of its 𝗴𝗏𝗂𝗁 webinar, part of the Sustainable Whale and Dolphin Watching Network with the IORA. I am 𝗪𝗵𝗹𝗶, Project Manager at 𝗂𝗏𝗂𝗁𝗵𝗹, the Sea Turtle Study and Discovery Center in Réunion Island. I will help facilitating the discussion within the network for the French government, which coordinates the network. And joining me today are my colleagues 𝗏𝗏𝗂𝗁𝗵𝗹𝗏 and 𝗪𝗵𝗻𝗄𝗃 from Quietude team at cie_DTM. They will help me manage and facilitating the webinar. So if you have any technical issue, please let us know in the chat. And to keep things running smoothly, we have muted microphones during the presentation phase. So, however, the chat will be open during the webinar, so you can add any comment. And after the presentation, we're going to have a Q&A session where you can raise your hand and contribute to the discussion. So now to start the webinar, I am pleased to hand it over to Mrs. Zelda Brolik, South Africa's Director of Academic Science and Technology Cooperation and Tourism and Cultural Exchanges Priority Areas for IORA for the introductory remarks, please.
Good morning, colleagues. Ambassador Brunet, colleagues from the World Cetacean Alliance, 𝗪𝗵𝗹𝗶 and colleagues, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Today is the second conference in a series that emanates from France and the cie_DTM's tireless efforts to revitalize the sustainable whale and dolphin watching tourism network. During this period, we have seen a steady growth in stakeholders interested in joining the network, which contributes significantly to educating and engaging future generations on the importance of sustainable practices, including conservation to preserve the ocean for the future. Ladies and gentlemen, I had the honor to work with an ambassador who used to say that a diplomat is only as important as his or her network. And I think the same applies here. Strong networks open doors to new opportunities, expand our knowledge and resources, and provides a support system of like-minded individuals. Furthermore, building relationships within a network can, in addition, lead to collaborations, mentorships, career networks, and even lifelong friendships. The sustainability of the whale and dolphin watching network will in a large measure depend on the continued fostering of contacts within this and related areas through the sharing of information, promotion of capacity building, and providing access to expertise. Over the past year, we at the IORA got to know 𝗪𝗵𝗹𝗶 and the CD team very well. And I will venture to say that the continued existence of the network is in good hands. Distinguished delegates, let's utilize the next hour to share information and expertise while creating opportunities for future capacity building opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Brolik, for the introduction on behalf of IORA. Now I will hand it over to Ambassador Brunet, Delegate for Regional Cooperation in the Indian Ocean at the French Ministry for Europe and Foreign Affairs.
Thank you very much, 𝗪𝗵𝗹𝗶, and good morning and greetings to all. And it's a great pleasure and honor for me to be welcoming you all to this webinar. I'm very pleased to be joining you together with Director Zelda Brolik from the IORA Secretariat, together with our French team and especially my dear colleague and friend Laurent Amar, who is the diplomatic advisor of the Prefect of La Réunion, and the team of the cie_DTM and the La Réunion team coordinating this network together with all the partners of the member states and dialogue partners of IORA and all partner networks that are also joining us today. So that's a great opportunity for team building indeed in this endeavor. So as the French ambassador in charge of regional cooperation in the Indian Ocean, and also senior official for my country in IORA, I'm very pleased to see the CEDTM team from La Réunion taking on this coordinating role, responsibility for the sustainable whale and dolphin watching tourism network of IORA. And for this second webinar organized, so I would like really to congratulate them for this new responsibility. And just to mention the context of our French commitment from especially La Réunion and Indian Ocean on this project. The context is very clear. France is a country of the Indian Ocean. We have 1.1 million French citizens living in both La Réunion and Mayotte Islands. We have in the Indian Ocean the third largest EEZ, and we are a full member of IORA now for 3 years. And blue economy, tourism, blue tourism, especially sustainable tourism, the preservation of marine environment and wildlife, biodiversity, are top priorities for us in this Indian Ocean region. So for all IORA member states, and we know also many dialogue partners of IORA are keen to strengthen cooperation in these fields and to address common challenges, but also develop opportunities for creating capacities, as it was being said by 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗏 just before me, and developing also experience sharing and possible coordinated approaches to help the communities develop these activities. Within IORA, I have seen in the governing bodies of IORA that many colleagues, indeed from member states and dialogue partners, are very keen to see more activity for whale and dolphin watching tourism, best practices sharing, and also are very interested by the complementary approach that you develop in your initiatives of your networks, complementary approach of protection of the environment and of the whales and dolphins and biodiversity, but also blue tourism, this multidimensional approach between environment, socio-economic development, scientific and community engagement is really fascinating. It is also key for us in preparing for the upcoming priorities, as you know, of the UNOC 3 United Nations Conference on the Oceans that will take place next year in 2025 in June in Nice, in France. And your activity in this sustainable whale and dolphin watching tourism network of IORA will definitely be highlighted at this occasion, included in the many initiatives that take place in the Indian Ocean in the context of the protection of the oceans, and especially during what we will call the Year of the Seas, especially in the French overseas territories, starting September 27th in 2 months, with also special activities that will take place in La Réunion and Mayotte. And so we will have, during the whole Year of the Seas, preparing for the Nice conference, many opportunities to highlight your activities in that context. So I congratulate again the La Réunion team for taking up this new responsibility and continuing to follow the path, or I should say the wake, followed by a former coordinator, Australia, and with, of course, the many inputs and support of all IORA colleagues and dialogue partners who would like to join this activity. France, also to mention the context, France is in IORA is mobilizing support for more collective action in several areas, from maritime security to the fight against IUU fishing. We had a workshop in early May in La Réunion on this. Also on the fight against marine debris. We will join the strategic framework within IORA on the fight against marine debris. And we will also develop our activity in the field of disaster risk management cooperation. The French Development Aid Agency, AFD, is rendering increased financial support to IORA activities in the next 3 years for especially those I just mentioned. And many of these activities are done from La Réunion Island with state representatives, but also civil society actors. And in 2 areas, it's even a full ownership and responsibility of local actors in charge. And I would mention indeed the whale and dolphin watching tourism network, and CEDTM, but also the future tourism virtual resource center for IORA, which is also will be managed from the La Réunion Island teams. So for the current network that we'll talk about for this webinar, we see this also a very interesting endeavor to build a network of networks. And I'm very pleased to see you all connected today for this exchange. Very quickly to add that La Réunion and Mayotte Islands have all their own whale watching experience that are very complementary, very interesting to follow with common approaches, of course, but also very complementary. It's very timely to discuss, I think, this potential indeed for more regional cooperation and this multifaceted approach. As we know, the whales and the dolphins are not very bothered by borders between our islands and littoral states. They see, after all, very much an open, free, inclusive, and peaceful maritime domain. I mean, they want to keep it peaceful and open, free, and inclusive. That sounds very familiar to us in IORA with the same objectives, I would say, between us humans in the region to develop cross-border cooperation and keep, indeed, the area open, free, inclusive, and peaceful, and also especially to protect its nature and its environment, and to keep it for the next, the young generation of today and the next ones. And so with this motto and commitment, I wish you all an excellent, and us all an excellent and fruitful webinar. We will have opportunities to reflect on our work within the relevant bodies of the IORA in the next months. I know that the Sri Lanka chair and vice chairs, together with the other member states and dialogue partners, attach great expectations to our network and perspectives for blue economy and tourism, the protection of the oceans, and indeed engaging all stakeholders on this endeavor. So thank you very much for your commitment, and thank you for your attention, and have an excellent webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Brunet, for those introduction remarks. As you mentioned, France has been coordinating the Sustainable Whale and Dolphin Watching Network since 2020, and we are working on boosting exchanges and introducing new sharing actions. So this year we launched the It's Whale O'Clock webinar as the annual online meeting for the network's focal points and contacts. It lasts about 1 hour and aims to keep everyone updated on network's news, to explore a specific topic related to responsible whale watching tourism, and to strengthen connection within the network. So the first edition was in April 2024, and we're now at the second edition. So today's program includes a recap of the Sustainable Whale and Dolphin Watching Network of IORA, its context and objectives, and then an introductory presentation on networks related to cetacean and whale watching tourism in the Indian Ocean, highlighting complementarities and opportunities. And then we have our main speaker of the day, the International Cetacean Alliance, which will share insights on from local to global enhancing whale watching through a collaborative approach. So feel free to contribute in the chat, and we're going to have a short Q&A session, as I said, afterward. So thank you, and I'll hand it over to my colleague Charlene, project officer, for some reminders about the network. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anne-Emmanuelle. So good morning or afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to introduce a brief overview of the background and purposes of the Sustainable Whale and Dolphin Watching Tourism Network of IORA. So first of all, this network was initiated in 2017 following a workshop dedicated to whale and dolphin tourism challenges held in Colombo, in Sri Lanka, in February 2016, carried out thanks to Australia and in partnership with the International Whaling Commission and Murdoch University. So following this workshop, the initiative received the approval of the IORA Committee of Senior Officials in May 2016. And in October 2017, it was agreed that the IORA Secretariat will take the lead in developing the network. This network emerged from IORA's core group tourism related to the focus area of blue economy. So there are three main purposes. First is to promote the regional cooperation in sustainable whale watching by sharing information, by strengthening the capacity of territories, providing access to expertise. Second one is to ensure the environmental, economic, and social sustainability of the activity. And third is to facilitate the regional cooperation between IORA agencies. So at this time, it was agreed to focus on information sharing, capacity building, and access to expertise. So concerning the membership, it's open to IORA member states on a voluntary basis. So the network has a formal list of contacts bringing together national focal points nominated by each of the states to IORA, and a possibility other members officially nominated to the Secretariat. The network has also been expanded to include professionals from outside the network, like private sector, local communities, governments, NGOs, scientists, and other stakeholders, in response to a more integrative and collaborative approach. And so the network is coordinated by a member state on a voluntary basis. The first one was Australian government since the inception of the network, and then France volunteered since June 2022 to ensure the continuation of this mission. So our team, 𝗂𝗏𝗧, has been providing technical support for this coordination since July 2023. So finally, I will present quickly sharing tools and actions carried out since the network was set up. So first, an extensive work has been done to encourage IORA countries to nominate a focal point for the network in each member state, to develop profiles by country for the whale watching handbook developed by the International Whaling Commission, to promote the involvement of member states the two organizations, so IORA and IWC, and to develop whale-watching guidelines or adopt existing international guidelines if not already the case. So as you can see, an important partnership work has been put in place with the International Whaling Commission. And so for the sharing tools, there were 3 newsletters. One last year in 2023. So you can flash the QR code to have access. And other sharing documents like a legal report and another report on socio-economic aspect of the activity in Réunion Island will be shared by the end of this year. And to finish, these 2 video conference, so in April and today. Thank you for your attention, and I will let the floor to Anne-Emmanuelle.
Thank you, Charlene, for this recap on the network history and insights. So when every sharing network has its own goals and tools, which can complement and strengthen each other through their diverse topics, stakeholders, and shared resources. So when it comes to cetaceans and whale-watching tourism, Réunion Island benefits from connections to France mainland and overseas territories, also with the southwestern Indian Ocean and the border with the broader Indian Ocean, as well as international links. So this highlights the importance of networks and their connectivity in the region, like the Indian Ocean. So whale-watching tourism has many aspects and challenges we have been already talking about. First of all, let's talk, for example, about the ecological dimensions of the whale-watching. First, in the Indian Ocean, we share cetaceans populations. Some populations stay in a limited area, while others are migratory, and they don't recognize the same borders as we do. So, for example, in 2022, this map of the blue corridors updates our knowledge about the whale migratory routes and highlights their critical habitats. And we also share, as an ecological dimension, common threats to cetaceans that need to be mitigated. So in 2021, the report of the International Whaling Commission gives an overview of the significant impacts of human activities on these animals, including fishing, shipping, resource extraction, and tourism. And these activities cause threats like bycatch, ship strikes, pollution, and noise or climate change. About cetaceans and whale-watching, we also have a strong human dimensions. So in the Indian Ocean and worldwide, whale-watching tourism is growing exponentially. The last large-scale study from 2009 looked at the activity's evolution and assessed its economic impact, benefits, challenges for cetaceans and conservation. So 15 years ago, it already reported $2 billion generated, with a trend towards an exponential growth. The development of the whale-watching in a region generally follows a typical process, starting from a discovery phase, then moving to growth, expansion, and diversification. After that, there is a confrontation phase where norms and regulations are needed to manage the impact of tourism. And finally, to a stabilization phase where the activity matures and focuses on sustainable tourism and innovation. However, each region, each territory around the Indian Ocean has its own stage of development. But all of us, we are going towards a sustainable management, and therefore we've got different tools. For example, important areas that are identified. So And one of those examples are the important marine mammal area, the AMAs, that have been defined by the IUCN task force and experts to help manage and preserve those critical areas. We can find some of them in the Indian Ocean. For sustainable whale watching management, we also have international or regional conventions and organizations focusing on the Indian Ocean that guide countries in implementing management and protection tools. So I'm not going to go into their details, but I just want to let you know and invite you to check out the latest report written by a specialized lawyer shared within the IORA network on the legal framework of whale watching in the Indian Ocean. So you've got the QR code if you want, or we're going to put the link into the chat if you want to have a look at it and you haven't yet. So all those considerations involve a wide variety of stakeholders, including scientists, managers, policymakers, tourism actors. There is a real need for a collaborative approach. Why? To create connections between different initiatives, tools, resources, and also to integrate the differences and the strength of each area of expertise, approach, and limitation also. So just a few words to complete about the networks, some networks connected to Réunion Island. It's not an exhaustive overview regarding the topic of cetaceans and whale watching tourism. Those examples are at 4 different scales. They have different statuses, histories, objectives, stakeholders, characteristics, governance structures, or scales, but they all work in common on cetaceans and or whale watching issues. So the first scale, the national scale. So this is an informal exchange network started by CDTM with support of the French Biodiversity Office and continued now with the help of the AGOA Sanctuary in the French West Indies. So established in 2019, this network connects focal points from other French territories across mainland and other French islands around to share information about the whale watching activities in their different local contexts under a single national identity. Initially, it brought together managers, state representatives, and NGOs involved in monitoring the activity, and we have been working around a common sharing platform during a 3-day workshop, and more recently on sharing reflections on how to manage the activity in a sustainable way. At the southwestern Indian Ocean scale, I want to mention the scientific consortium called INDOCET. INDOCET was established in 2014 to share and collaborate on cetaceans research and conservation for all species around. So this consortium is coordinated by the NGO Globis, based in Réunion Island and governed by a memorandum of understanding that includes individuals involved in the cetaceans research and conservation, and it aims to facilitating exchanges through meetings, newsletter, also a website to get centralized metadata, an interactive map, and also programs such as regional marine mammal observers and a synchronized day for counting cetaceans. On the next scale of Indian Ocean, we're not going to go further into the IORA Sustainable Whale Dolphin Watching Network we already talked about. And to finish, another example at the international scale, The next one is the WCA, the World Cetacean Alliance, based in the UK, that brings together organizations, businesses, individuals working to protect cetaceans and their habitats, aiming to unify methodology to cetaceans protection and responsible whale watching. So I'm not going to go further. I'm just going to thank again the WCA for being our main speaker, and Sophie Lewis and Elisabeth Cuevas will present us the topic from local to global, enhancing whale watching through a collaborative approach. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to the IORA network for giving us this opportunity to speak with you today, and for cie/DTM for the wonderful coordination of this webinar. It's so great to see so many people joining, and to hear the introductions. It really set the scene so nicely. So yes, I'm Sophie Lewis. I'm from the World Cetacean Alliance, and I'm here with my colleague Elisabeth Cuevas, who is the Whale Heritage Area Project Manager. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the background to the WCA. We're going to talk about what we mean by local to global, especially in the context of the whale watching industry. And we're going to introduce to you just a few frameworks and tools that the WCA uses to use this collaborative approach for local to global. It's a short presentation, so we know we can only touch on a few things. So please do ask your questions in the chat, and we'll try and answer them afterwards. Or if not, please do get in touch with us afterwards, because we would really love to continue this conversation. So first of all, why do we need to think about collaboration and a local to global approach? We've already touched upon in the earlier talks about the multitude of threats that cetaceans have faced. And these highly migratory animals are affected by these threats from all over the world, from all different angles. Direct threats like plastic pollution, whaling, ship strikes, but also those more insidious threats like the disturbance from tourism, noise pollution, seismic activity. And all of these create this lethal concoction of disturbance to these animals. But the impact that this has, previous slide please. So the impact that this has on local communities can threaten livelihoods, cultural heritage, and local economies. But more worryingly, we could potentially be losing some of our crucial allies in our fight against climate change and biodiversity loss. So although there are incredible efforts happening all around the world by individual actors, whether that's whale watching companies, NGOs, or international organizations, these efforts are often fragmented. And this global issue, these global threats and these global migratory species really need a unified collaborative approach in order to address the threats that they're facing. Next slide, please. So in 2013, the WCA, the World Cetacean Alliance, was founded in response to a growing demand from those NGOs, those non-governmental organizations, those charities, those whale watching businesses, but also individual activists and researchers around the world who were really seeking an opportunity to unite their efforts, to seek out support from one another, be able to share best practices so that they could have a centralized platform in order to unify their efforts to cetacean conservation. Essentially, what they were after was a unified voice for whales, dolphins, and porpoises. Next slide, please. So over the last 11 years, the WCA has grown considerably. We're now a membership of over 120 partners across more than 30 countries around the world. And they include those stakeholder groups I already mentioned, so non-governmental organizations, whale watching companies, and individuals. And from the earliest days, we really recognized that the power of our network and the strength of our mission really lies in the wonderful work that these individual organizations and companies are doing all around the world, and what they bring to the table, what they bring to our global network. So whether that is a small NGO working in Costa Rica to do research on the carrying capacity of cetacean populations in their area in order to inform whale watching management techniques, or whether it's a small family-run whale watching business in Mozambique that not only practices responsible whale watching, but also uses that business to enhance employment opportunities for women in their community. We really have some incredible examples of organizations in our partnership, including cie_DTM here. And so it's really our role as the WCA to foster the collaboration between these brilliant stakeholders, amplify their impact by coalescing that knowledge, that expertise, and providing them with the platform to join together through a common cause, and ultimately do better for cetaceans and the communities that rely on them. Next slide, please. So broadly, the WCA's work fits under these categories. So our core reason for being is to enable that collaboration, as I've already talked about. We create an inclusive space for these diverse conversations to happen to drive sustainable solutions for cetaceans. We really believe in the power of empowering communities to drive cetacean conservation. And Ellie will talk a little bit more about our Whale Heritage Areas program, which is really the core of that pillar. And finally, we reduce human impact. So we look at how our activities as humans can be minimized in terms of the impact they have on cetaceans. So responsible whale watching, we have our WCA approved program, which I will talk about shortly, but we also work on bycatch issues, and also we provide training to large vessels to avoid ship strikes with cetaceans. Next slide, please. So what do we mean when we talk about local to global? So this really means coordinating conservation efforts across all scales, from local individuals and communities to the international stage, and emphasizing the importance of that cross-boundary collaboration for sustainable cetacean outcomes. At the local level, that's individuals and communities. So whether it's an individual NGO and the work that they do, or whale watching businesses making efforts to reduce their impact and their disturbance on cetaceans. But it's also about local collaboration. It's about stakeholders within a community working together. And examples of that might include whale watching associations and collaborative local whale watching management techniques. Globally, international cooperation through organizations like the World Cetacean Alliance, but also networks like IORA, they unite diverse stakeholders in order to develop policy, advocacy, and research initiatives. And then you have things like global guidelines, which we'll talk about in a bit shortly too, which help to standardize practices like whale watching around the world. But how do we connect those two levels, that local and the global? So really through knowledge sharing, sharing those local insights can inform global strategies, while international research and policies can enhance local initiatives. Next slide, please. So we're just going to talk a little bit about some of the tools that the WCA uses to enhance this local to global approach. Next slide, please. Firstly, I'm just going to touch upon the WCA's global guidelines for responsible whale and dolphin watching. These guidelines were developed in order to ensure that whale watching activities were conducted in a way that minimizes the disturbance to the animals, but also enhances environmental education to tourists and encourages sustainable management practices for these businesses. And they were developed with a real global perspective. We did a large consultancy project where we involved stakeholders around the world, from researchers to those industry stakeholders, the whale watching companies themselves, also some tourists, scientists. And from that collaborative global effort, we created these global set of guidelines, which are in line with other global initiatives like the IWC guidelines and ABTA guidelines. And they were produced with the aim that there's some consistency across whale watching practices across the different regions and countries, but they were also really carefully designed so that they could be applied at local contexts. So being able to be applicable to local scenarios, including species, population, and location specific variations. And that involvement with industry stakeholders from around the world in their development was really important, as they're developed by the industry and for the industry. Next slide, please. So how do we use these guidelines? Well, the WCA first and foremost created a certification program. It's called the WCA Approved Scheme, previously known as WCA Certified. And this program allows whale watching companies to be assessed against the global guidelines, recognizing those companies that are already meeting these high standards, whilst also providing a framework for others to strive to improve and meet the standards. For the wider tourism industry, they actually provide including those large tour operators who have suppliers all around the world, they provide a tool to identify and work with responsible whale watching operators around their destinations, something that is global but adaptable. And for tourists, they allow them to make informed choices when looking for responsible whale watching experiences. Next slide, please. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Ellie, who's going to give a little bit more information about whale heritage areas.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you, everyone. So at the heart of our collaborative approach is the Whale Heritage Areas program. This is a global network of locations where local communities celebrate, respect, and protect cetaceans. Whale heritage areas formally recognize or designate destinations that support and demonstrate the importance of cetaceans and their habitats, and that are also committed to care for and protect these animals through a collaborative management partnership. For the tourism industry, whale heritage areas provide a clear marker to help identify and support sustainable practices, and also creates a platform for communities and also visitors to engage with marine culture, heritage, and biodiversity. Through this initiative, local communities, and this includes indigenous groups and coastal residents, are empowered to participate in decision-making processes and conservation activities that directly impact not only cetacean habitats, but also their livelihoods. Next, please. So to become a whale heritage area, each community has to go through a designation process and meet 5 criteria, demonstrating that there is a cultural importance of cetaceans, that there is community involvement, cetacean research, educational initiatives of programs, sustainability and conservation efforts, and also a commitment to responsible whale and dolphin tourism. Of course, this is a very simplified version of the application process, but the important part for this webinar is to highlight that the applicant need to start engaging with the wider community from the beginning, reaching out to key stakeholders for them to join and be directly or indirectly involved, or perhaps just endorse this initiative. This normally leads to the formation of a steering committee that it's inclusive and representative of all stakeholders, and this could include whale-watching businesses, NGOs, researchers, or universities, sometimes the authorities as well, or tourism departments, and other businesses or community groups, all of which collaborate and decide how the whale heritage area will be managed. And this is a critical part because not just for the whale heritage area application, but for ensuring the long-term success of the whale heritage area. So just to summarize, whale heritage areas are a cross-sector partnership, and they are run by a steering committee that should be diverse and are supported by the WCA. And this local collaborative approach ensures that conservation efforts remain effective and relevant across diverse regional contexts. Next, please. So as you can see in this map, now globally, we currently have 11 designated areas, with many more working towards its certification. And since its inception, the program has grown significantly, expanding to diverse regions around the world, all committed to cetacean conservation and sustainable tourism. So we have, from three areas in South Africa, to other three in the Atlantic Ocean, two in the US, one in Latin America, and a couple more in Australia, with Sundays being the newest designated area this year. And we are hoping to have more soon. Apart from recognition and prestige, of course, this brings a wide range of benefits for local communities, and that could be said like economic, environmental, and social. But the one that we consistently seen across all areas, and is the one that the communities care the most, I would say, is that this has been a platform to bring people together and promotes collaboration, and at the same part of being part of a global network. So World Heritage Areas is bringing people together that otherwise they wouldn't sometimes, and through dialogue and joint efforts, they perhaps leave behind some differences, and people start working together towards a shared goal. And this creates a sense of ownership, stewardship, and drives continuous improvement as well. Next, please. So because the success of this World Heritage Area program, World Animal Protection, with the help of WCA, launched a bigger program, the Wildlife Heritage Areas program, taking the previous model and expanded it to more species and habitat types. So this program is building a wider global network, of which World Heritage Areas are also part of. Next, please. And I just wanted to give you a couple of examples of World Heritage Areas where they have seen this collaboration benefit from the beginning. So Hervey Bay was the first World Heritage Area designated in 2019, alongside the Bluff in South Africa. And the steering committee has observed that achieving this accreditation has brought together all various stakeholders from the community in a very authentic way. For example, before this, there was little to no communication between the whale watching fleet and other stakeholders, such as researchers. So this helped to build the relationship and direct communication between these two sectors. As well as improved communication between regulators and the whale fleet. There has been more organization of events that increase communication between researchers and the public, but also with the World Heritage Area Committee itself, that now acts as a central point of all cetacean inquiries. Next, please. And then we have Madeira. Madeira was designated more recently in October last year. And even in this short period of time, the World Heritage Areas framework has already boosted collaboration among local stakeholders and research institutes. And thanks to this process, for the first time, whale watching companies came together and they show interest in working together to be part of this initiative. The steering committee actually built a process for the whale watching companies to join that ensures that they are all aligned with the program, but also are actively improving sustainability. This is already being successful with several operators showing this commitment. And the Madeira Steering Committee said that being a whale heritage area has held them accountable for continuous improvement in their area. And moving forward, they aim to enhance unity among the whale watching operators, improve their collaboration with research institutes, and support educational programs. Next, please. And finally, at a global scale, we have the example of Southern African humpback whale migration route of festival. This is a great example of how local collaboration can be scaled up to have impact across multiple communities and countries. This started in 𝗪𝒂𝒏𝒊𝒏 Whale Heritage Area by Lloyd of Rugby Charters, a whale watching tour operator. He wanted to expand it to include celebratory events along the whole humpback migration route. And he connected communities, shared the blueprint for the festival, learnings and best practices, and encouraged local and cross-border collaboration. Ultimately, he developed this incredible route of festivals that celebrates this journey and brings people together. And actually, within this route, we have 3 whale heritage areas already designated. And we just don't stop here. We're still finding ways to facilitate further collaboration amongst the global network to connect and amplify our collective impact. For example, we are currently running webinars for whale heritage areas, aiming to create an online community platform for all whale heritage areas steering committees to share ideas and expertise, to exchange knowledge and also resources. We also continue to engage with potential whale heritage areas around the world, encouraging more communities to form local collaborative management partnerships to globally protect cetaceans and their habitats. And now I go back to you, Sophie. Next, please.
Thanks so much, Ellie. I know we're a little bit short of time, so I won't go through this in detail, but just wanted to summarize that the WCA was founded to facilitate this connection between these diverse stakeholders and to create this global voice for cetacean conservation. And because of the multitude of threats and their migratory nature, we really need to focus on this local to global approach. And I hope that some of these examples of how the WCA approaches that has helped to illustrate it. Next slide. I just wanted to quickly thank you everyone for being here and for the opportunity to discuss the WCA's approach to this. Please do get in contact with us afterwards if you would like to ask any further questions, or if you'd like any more information about some of the topics that we've covered. And please do sign up to our newsletter and follow us on social media if you would like to keep updated with the work of the WCA network.
Thank you so much, Sophie and Ellie, for your presentation. This is really interesting and shows how important is the global approach and collaboration for the challenges we face. And I'm sure it's going to help a lot in our future discussion in the Indian Ocean. So we would love to hear any question if you've got some or contribution to what we have been talking about for this Q&A session, which will be pretty short, but please feel free to write anything you want in the chat, or if you have any question, you also can raise your hand. We're going to be happy to propose an answer with the WCA with us. That was very clear. So, yeah. Anyway, I think we have a desire to connect between the different initiatives and networks. And that was very interesting to hear about the concrete proposals and tools you have been developing that are a lot of good opportunities to use in different countries, depending on the needs of everyone. Well, anyway, if you have any question coming further, do not hesitate to contact the WCA or to contact the coordination team of the IORA Sustainable Whale and Dolphin Watching Network. We'll be very happy to connect and answer. And we'll be happy to share new tools and information for the future. So as we mentioned, there is no question coming. That was the second edition. Here is a question. Thank you. In the chat, can you hear that, Sophie? So what are the possible solutions for managing dolphins and whales at the same time gaining the win-win situation with such activity, shipping and fishing? You have any insights, Sophie?
I mean, I think that's sort of the ultimate goal, isn't it? To be able to have these different industries being able to work side by side in a way that minimizes disturbance to the animals, but also is beneficial to those communities. And I think that it really is a location specific question, and locations have to do that work to understand what the populations of cetaceans are like in their region and what those industries look like. And it needs to be collaborative with the different stakeholders involved in that. And I think that is where, well, the message we're really trying to get across is that these collaborative efforts have to start with empowering individuals to be involved in the conversation right from the beginning, to really understand not only how to manage these different industries, but also to encourage people to buy into the solutions that come out of those situations. So I think that whilst I don't have necessarily the answers for exactly how you would do that in your scenario, I think that collaborative approach is key in order to create long-term success and sustainability for industries working side by side. But more than happy to discuss it more in detail, and we can connect different partners that might have experience of these different industries working together and how they've been managed in different areas.
Thank you very much for this first question. Another one for you, Sophie, from the IWC, Elisabeth. She said thanks, and she was wondering if you could add more detail to the partnerships. Are they tourism operators only, or sometimes NGOs? You have partnerships with governmental levels?
Yep, so our partners are all different types of stakeholders. So yes, whale watching companies, but yes, also NGOs, both local NGOs, so small organizations working in their communities, up to international organizations working across countries and boundaries. Also individuals as well can join the WCA partnership. At a government level, we work more closely with governments and local governments through the Whale Heritage Areas programme. So it's partnerships through the steering committees that are formed through the Whale Heritage Area initiatives. That's not to say that we don't work closely with governments through other elements of the WCA network, but there's not, currently we don't have any government organisations as a WCA partner, but we work with them through the Whale Heritage Areas.
Thanks, Sophie. Another question is, in which part of Africa WCA has collaborated with, and for what criteria?
Ellie, I could pass over to you to talk about the Whale Heritage Areas in Africa.
Of course. So we have 3 Whale Heritage Areas in South Africa. One is the Bluff The other one is Goa Bay, Port Elizabeth, and we have Plettenberg Bay as well. So in terms of World Heritage areas, those are the communities that we work with directly. Plus, I believe that we have some partners in Africa, right, Sophie? Just WCA partners in general.
In Mozambique, we do, yes. We also held our 2017 conference, World Whale Conference in Durban in South Africa. So that united more stakeholders from around Africa as well.
And as Sophie said, if you are interested to know more about these areas and the people that we work with there, please feel free to reach out. Happy to share that information in more detail.
Thanks, Sophie and Ellie. I don't see another question, but in fact, the concept of It's Whale O'Clock is about staying updated, sharing, and keeping in touch. So we are glad that this hour together has helped everyone connect on this topic and find new ways to get the contacts yours and collaborate or have further exchanges after the webinar. Is there any last question, maybe to finish? Or as we said, here is the Google form. Yeah. So as we said, that the second edition of the webinar, and that was a pilot phase where we wanted to propose you a new tool to share within the network. We would be very happy if you have any feedback on our expectation to share for future of this proposition of webinar. So do not hesitate to fill the form. You've got the link in the chat. So because we want this proposition to meet your expectations the best. I would like to say a last and great thank you to the WCA. We have a last contribution. So as a country in Zanzibar, we are much depending on the tourism sector for contribution of gross domestic product. May I address the suggestion for WCA to come in Zanzibar for knowledge sharing and dolphin whale watching management?
That would be great. And please do feel free to get in touch. We can discuss that further.
Thank you very much. So the webinar was recorded, so we're going to send you the link for those who want to share it or those who couldn't attend the meeting today. I want to thank everyone for the participation today. Mrs. Worley from the IORA Secretariat has to leave earlier and apologize. She won't be here for the conclusion remarks. But thanks a lot, everyone, too, for the participation. And I will give the floor to Mr. Laurent Amar for the closing remarks to close the session. Thanks a lot again.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anne-Emmanuelle. I was indeed delighted to attend this second edition of It's Whale O'Clock. As you explained, it's the end of the pilot phase, but we hope it will be just the beginning of revitalization of the network, and we are waiting for your suggestions and comments. I have no real concluding remarks, but I would like to give a vote of thanks to all of you. First of all, to WCA for the very informative and insightful presentation, which gave us the opportunity to ask a very precise question and to organize maybe future collaboration. We would be very happy to work also on this concept of World Heritage areas in France, in Réunion Island or in Mayotte. I would like, of course, to highlight what you said about the multifaceted threats that cetaceans face, and the need for collaboration, of course, and platforms of collaboration within our member countries. I would also like to say thank you to the CADTM, and especially to Anne-Emmanuelle, because we know she gave a lot of impetus to this pilot phase with very high level of professionalism and ability to link people together. So I would really like to thank her and to wish her all the best for future projects. So thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. AMAR. And thank you, everyone. And I wish you a great morning or day or evening, depending on where you are. And see you next time. Have a good day. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Goodbye.
Thank you. شكرا لكم.